let's go through the terms we've got here real quick, and then we'll get down to the meat of the project. Open center, that's where you're going to go up a certain height and stop your tree, and you'll branch out from there. Now you can have like 2 or possibly 3 main stems, and then you guide the branches off of them. Another term for that used to be umbrella. And the old orchards, when they were looking at 30, 40, 50 years of a tree in the orchard, and they were on standard rootstock, they would make that umbrella. And that would keep it down in that 12-foot range, which was easy to pick. Okay, which I threw out some more terms. You've got standard, you've got dwarf, semi-dwarf, and there's several others. Dwarf trees aren't well rooted. They need additional support. Depending on the rootstock, rootstock is what you graft to. Depending on the rootstock, some semi-dwarf are completely well-rooted and strong and standalone. Others, again, need supported. The dwarf trees, the fully dwarfed trees, almost need to be on a trellis system. That is, you set posts and run wires, and that's what you see in a lot of the commercial orchards now. And they're on like an 8 to 10 year rotation. They jerk those out, put another one in. It's not so much the life of the tree, although they're short-lived compared to what we call the standard. The standard is a tree that will just grow from a seed, and so it's a true tree, and those are 100-year trees, and some of them are 400 and 500 years old in New England and England and France. So we know that they root really well and they stand up. Semi-dwarf is probably what most people will plant, and it's, depending on the rootstock, it may or may not be a strong rooter. And semi-dwarf means that you can hold them at about 10 to 12 feet tall. So I think we all have dreams of a tree that we can go and pick right here. And really ain't going to happen unless you go with the full dwarf, and they're not going to stand up. So you need to put supports in to hold them. Okay, so open center. That's that umbrella type tree. You're going to have your branches out here, and everything that goes up from there you will take off every year. Central leader. That's the one where you maintain one stem going up, and then you take branches off of it at about every 3-foot interval. And you're going to try to hold that at a maximum of about 12 feet. So when you're planting fruit trees, you need to remember you got to have room for them, and you got to have a ladder. All right, scaffold branch. That is that main branch. And then you've got your smaller branches that come off of it, and you prune to have those continue to produce fruiting buds. Leader, that is just what it says. It's the leader. So whether it's 2 or 3 or 1, you take one sprout and allow that to get bigger and bigger, and that's the leader. A lateral is like a scaffold branch, but it's also off the leader. So it's in layers. Okay, so your laterals come out, especially off the central leader type, and again, about every 3 feet. The reason for this is to get sunlight into the tree. And that was the beauty of the old open center, is you had one layer, possibly two, but basically one layer out there in that umbrella, and so your tree got full sun. That's where you get those nice big apples and all that beautiful color on them, whether it's yellow or red or combinations thereof. Okay, head or head back. Let's go back to the leader. You're going to have to cut it back each year. These trees want to grow up. And so you'll take a third, if this was our leader, which it's not, of course, but if it was our leader, we would take a third to 50% of this off each year, take it to just slightly above a bud. That bud will make a new leader the next year, and we'll keep doing that. This does, the main thing it does is make a heavier, stronger branch or central leader. Okay, so head or head back, those are different terms for this, doing the same thing. To head or head back is to cut off. Okay, suckers or water sprouts. That's what these things are. They came out on an old branch and they went up. This is 1 year's growth. This is why you have to keep right after them, especially the old trees. I had some that I pruned really heavy this spring, and they look like a chia pet right now. Okay, risers and hangers. Let's go back to our scaffold branch. Okay, off that branch we have risers, the ones that are going to go up, and we have hangers, the ones that are dropping down. And for the most part, we're going to take both of those off. Neither one of us is going to do us any good. For one thing, some of our trees are going to set so much fruit that the fewer branches we have, the better quality fruit we're going to get. Larger, more will go into it. A spur is a little stubby knob on the branch. Looks like it might want to be a limb. And some of them will grow into more water sprouts. But the ones we want to pay attention to are the fruiting spurs. And those little spurs are where the blossoms come out on. So it's important, and I can't really give you that information tonight. You need to get the book and read it because it explains it more thoroughly. But you take peaches and apricots grow on or bloom on 1 year wood. So this thing grows this year. Next year it will blossom and bear fruit. It's done.
1 year.
1 year. Oh, you'll get a few more, but the main bearing is over with. So you let them bear, prune them out, let the ones that grew this year bear next year. Apples, pears, cherries, if you don't damage that spur, they'll bloom for several years. They just keep getting elongated and keep blooming and bearing. So that's why you have to be careful when you pick fruit. You pick it, you grab it, and twist it. I'm sure we all do that, right? If you spin it, it comes out of the spur. If you grab it and jerk, you've got the spur with it. Okay, latent bud. And that's where we get all of these things. We've got this branch, it's 20 years old, and every year we get all of these things growing on it. And we cut them off, and the next year they come back again. That's why you saw me ripping these off. That is the only way to damage that growth center.
So rip it off.
Rip it off. But you don't wait until fall to do it. You go out there in June and early July when these things are only about this long, about like that, and you just wipe them off. And you will still continue to get these water sprouts, these suckers, but you will destroy a lot of those latent bud sites. Why do we want to prune? What is the reason to prune? Well, in the tree's early life, it is to determine what we want. Thank you, sir. What we want it to look like, what we want our tree to become. And so we plant it, and right then we start pruning. Now, a lot of our nurseries, a lot of our planting guides that we get from nurseries, thank you, ma'am, especially if we mail order, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I've had very good luck with a number of nurseries. But they say to cut everything back a third. That may be extreme, especially if you're well branched. You have a severely restricted root mass. They've pruned the heck out of it at the nursery to get it to fit into either a pot or a shipping bag. And the old theory was that you wanted to reduce that top so it wouldn't overpower the roots. Now there's more thinking that maybe you want as many leaves out there as possible to feed those roots. And it seems to work better to do on a very limited basis, the pruning. The one that works is if you're planting whips. And there you can just cut it back to 24 to 30 inches, somewhere like that. So that you can get it 2 or 3 branches coming. And because it's a whip, you have a lot better chance. But if you go out to all seasons and buy one of these trees that's already 8 feet tall in a pot, and you got this root, you need all the leaves you can to carry that thing. So, you need to do everything you can to enhance its ability to grow. One of the main reasons to prune is to control the size of your tree. And that's probably evident on our field trip. That thing's out of hand again. So we have an upper tree that's way too tall for what our purposes are. Then the older, lower portion has become a mess. And we're going to take an awful lot of that out to get that tree back to where it is pleasant. But with these younger trees, when we plant them, like I said, we want to start shaping them. But we want to develop structural strength. And we want to get branching. Now, some of you have probably seen these pear trees that are nobody's pruned, and they've just gone up like a Lombardy poplar, and they're actually about 35 feet tall. They've really gotten out of hand, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. I've got a cherry tree that I let do that unintentionally. I didn't do much with it for a long time, and then, it's like 6 inches through where I took the chainsaw to it, about 15 feet from the ground. And that was definitely a chainsaw pruning job. There was no other way to do that.
When you say there's not much you can do about them, we have 2 pear trees in the yard that are about 10, 12 years old, and they've never been pruned. They went straight up.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, we'll get to some.
okay.
You're going to have to top them
Okay.
at some point. The problem with a lot of people's idea of pruning is just to go up and mow it off like a hedge. And that's not going to work for you.